also want to thank the folks who are joining us from our English Learners Roundtable. Certainly want to thank the White House and Roberto Rodriguez for his leadership. I want to thank all of our team, Libby for her great leadership, and Waylon and Mohammed Abdul Qadir, and our whole team is committed to ensuring that we lift up bilingualism and multilingualism. Particularly fitting that we convene as we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, an opportunity for all of us to remember the importance of diversity in American society, the fact that our diversity strengthens us, and at a moment of challenge in our country where there are clear tensions and challenges that are deeply embedded in our history around race and class, it is particularly important that we take this moment to celebrate our diversity and the strength that it brings us. And we now acknowledge how much our schools have changed. The fact that today, a majority of the students in our nation's public schools are students of color. And the fact that we have nearly 5 million English learners, representing nearly 1 in 10 of our students. We have a more diverse student body, and we are preparing all of our young people for a global economy in which they are likely to work alongside someone different from them. They are likely to have a supervisor who may speak a different language than they do. They may be serving clients and customers in other countries with vastly different language and cultural experiences. And so we're preparing all of our young people to engage in a increasingly interconnected world and a diverse American society. I think that calls on us to focus on a set of important priorities. One, that we must ensure that our English learners have the opportunity not only to gain English proficiency, but to get the full breadth of a well-rounded education. In too many places, English learners do not have access to advanced coursework in math and science in which they could achieve at high levels if given the opportunity. In too many places, adequate information is provided to parents who speak languages other than English about the opportunities their kids could have in school. So we have work to do to ensure that our English learners have the full range of curricular experiences that we want for all students. Second, it's important that we prepare our English learners to be bilingual and multilingual, and that we think carefully about how we see students' home language as an asset, not a deficit, an opportunity, not an obstacle, and support our English learners in becoming bilingual. Third, it's important that we see bilingual education and multilingualism as not just for those for whom English is not their first language, but for all students. We must be committed that all students, whatever language they speak at home, have access to those opportunities to be bilingual or multilingual. And fourth, we must recognize the urgency of ensuring that we have a diverse educator workforce, that we have a workforce that includes folks who grew up speaking languages other than English, that we have a diverse workforce that brings to the classroom and to school leadership the skills and ability to speak multiple languages. This work, for me, is deeply personal. Both my parents, actually, were lifelong New York City public school educators who worked on this very issue, coming at it from very different experiences. My mother came to the Bronx from Puerto Rico, where she was born as a young child, and New York City public schools gave her the opportunity not only to become proficient in English, but to become bilingual, to pursue higher education, to be the first in her family, to get a college degree, and to go on to a career as an educator. She spent her life working to advance the cause of educational equity for all students and the cause of bilingualism. My father had a very different experience. Grew up African American just after the turn of the 20th century, when opportunities for African Americans when out the bedside were more incredibly limited. But New York City public schools gave him the opportunity to get a higher education, to become an educator, to become a teacher and a principal and administrator. And ultimately, he, at the time when he was in the New York City then Board of Education, working in a senior administrative role, he led efforts to partner with schools in Puerto Rico to create some of the first exchange programs and bilingual educator recruitment programs. So they came at it from very different perspectives and experiences. But this work, this opportunity to continue their work for me, is about continuing the familial legacy. Both my parents passed away when I was a kid. So their professional lives as well. It's an honor to be able to carry on their work. Also, my mom passed away when I was 8, so I did not get to learn Spanish from her. But I did work to learn Spanish in school, and probably if you follow me on Twitter, you know I'm always working on my Spanish, and I value my own opportunity to work towards biliteracy and see it as a huge value for all of our young people. As we engage in this work, we must focus on the idea that bilingualism, multiliteracy is an asset. We got to focus people's attention on the research that shows clearly that students have the opportunity to learn multiple languages have meaningful cognitive and socio-emotional advantages as a result. Problem solving and math, critical thinking, not to mention their ability to function in a diverse world cross-culturally. We also, as we do this work, have a new education law to help support our work that every student sees exactly what the President signed in December. That law is a reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, a civil rights law then, a civil rights law now. As we use that law to advance the work on behalf of biliteracy and multiliteracy, we can do it knowing that that law is intended to allow states and districts to broaden the definition of educational excellence, to ensure that all students have a quality, well-rounded education, which includes the ability to learn a second language or third or more. And we have an opportunity also with that new law to focus attention on the needs of English learners, particularly English learner populations that are often ignored. Our English learners who have disabilities as well, our English learners who are long-term health. So we have new tools, and just today we announced our guidance on Title III, and you will see throughout that guidance an emphasis on how Title III resources, in conjunction with Title I, can be used to advance biliteracy and multiliteracy. We also have an opportunity today to celebrate the work that you are doing around the seal of biliteracy. And I'm very grateful to the leadership in this room around the seal of biliteracy. I want to particularly highlight the leadership of Shelley Spiegel-Coleman and Californians Together and their early work on the seal of biliteracy. Certainly want to highlight Dr. Lori Olson with the Sobrato Foundation, and certainly the 22 states and the District of Columbia that have moved forward on work on the seal of biliteracy. I also want to particularly recognize my former New York colleagues, Angelica and Lisette, who led important work in New York on establishing not only the seal of biliteracy, but really elevating bilingualism and multilingualism in the work of the Education Department in school districts across the state of New York. So, with that, it is now my honor to call forward those states represented today who are doing this important work to advance multiliteracy through a seal of biliteracy. Libby is going to call up each of the states, but before we do that, give each other a round of applause for the great work.
So our first 5 clusters, if you could come up: Arizona, California, Georgia, Illinois, and Maryland. If you could come up and line up in sequence here. On behalf of Governor Doug Ducey, he is represented by Jonathan Moore, who is the Deputy Assistant Superintendent of the Department of Education. So, please, Jonathan. The great state of California, represented by a huge group here. Tom Adams is representing Governor Jerry Brown Jr. On behalf of Governor Nathan Deal from Georgia, Dr. Richard Woods, who is also from the Department of Education, the superintendent. From Illinois, representing Governor Bruce Rauner, represented by Teresa Magnuson, Deputy Director of Federal Affairs. And while we're getting ready for the next one, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, and Oregon, please. And representing Governor Larry Hogan from Maryland, Laura Hook. I hope you guys realize I am from California, so if there was a bias, that came out unintentionally. Nevada, representing Governor Brian Sandoval, Felicia Ortiz from the Nevada State Board of Education. Governor Chris Christie, New Jersey, represented by Laura Morano, the Chief Academic Officer from the Department of Education. All right, we have a big team here, but New York, representing Governor Andrew Cuomo. Jerry Hoffman, is he here? Where? Oh, there he is. Okay. He's the Deputy Secretary of Education and Regent Luis Reyes. Where did he go? Luis Reyes. I thought we want you in the picture. Thank you. North Carolina, Governor Pat McCrory, represented by Helga Faciano, who is the Global Education Coordinator, K-12 Curriculum and Instruction. And the last five, Rhode Island, Utah, Virginia, Wisconsin, and Washington, D.C. Oregon, Governor Kate Brown, represented by Taffy Carlisle, who is the Equity and EL Program Specialist from the Office, the Department of Education. Rhode Island, Governor Gina Raimondo, right? Represented by Jillian Ballinger. Okay. Who is the coordinator for ELL Education, Department of Elementary Secondary Education. Utah, Governor Gary Herbert, represented by Ophelia Wade, who is the director at the Department of Education. Virginia, Governor Terry McAuliffe, represented by Dr. Lisa Harris, who's a specialist for foreign languages. Wisconsin, Governor Scott Walker, represented by Audrey Lasender. Yeah. Title III consultant at the Department of Education. And last but not least, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser is represented by the Deputy Mayor of Education, Jenny Niles. Thank you for coming. That's great. And I know we had a couple of other state representatives. I'm not sure they're here, but let me just say, is Isabel Levina Rodriguez here? I just want to say thank you for coming, and we're hoping that Connecticut will be adopting the seal of biliteracy, as you learned from everybody else up here.